I wanted to do a quick video introducing the idea of pseudocode that's obviously been introduced to the VCE Units 3 and 4 course recently. I think last year's exam had, that's 2023 exam had one multiple choice question on it. So yeah, we'll just have a look at what it's all about. So basically, if we don't want to write in a specific coding language like Python or R or C++ or any of the other ones you might have heard of, we can use a plain language form called pseudocode, and it performs an algorithm line by line. So you'll see with some examples in a second, but basically it's going to start with start and stop. So it's going to start with start, and then at the very end, we're going to write stop. And there's a few things we need to be aware of. To set a variable to a specific value, we write variable, then an arrow pointing towards that variable, and then the value that you choose to set it at. So for example, we could say X. You can set it at a value of 2. So the X would be here and the 2 would be here. To perform an operation, we use the operation symbols plus, minus, division, and multiplication, which is the asterisk. And then there's just a few different things we can do. So if, for example, we wanted to multiply two numbers together, we'd write start, and then the input would be the number that you want to multiply. I don't know, say you want to multiply 3 by 4. So number 1 is 3, comma, number 2 would be 4. And then the product is equal to 3 times 4. And then we use this command here, print, and it would print the product, and the product would be 12. So as the code gets executed, the final stage would be to print the number 12, and then the code would stop running. And then we've got some other things we can do with something called an if-else condition. So if we have some condition, then do one thing. But if we don't have that condition and we have something else, then do something else. So, and then otherwise end. So we can have multiple of those as well. So if some condition, then do this. If it's not that, then do this. If it's not either of those, do something else. And then finally, end your if else code. So if we look at an example, make more sense. So this here is an example. Start. We're going to input some score. I don't know, maybe someone gets a score of 70 on their test. If the score is less than 0 or greater than 100, print input a number from 0 to 100. So basically, if someone puts in like -10, that can't be the correct score. So it will print input a number from 0 to 100. Else, so if that's not the case and they input a number, a different number, so if that number is greater than 90 but less than or equal to 100, print an A plus because that student got an A plus. If not that, if the score was between 80 and 90, print A. If between 70 and 80, print B. If between 60 and 70, print C. You get the idea. And then, oops. And then otherwise print ungraded, and then you end your if else code that's been running. Okay, next thing we're going to do, if I can move down. Okay, so there's something else we can talk about, which is ways that we can repeat the algorithm. So there's two different things. We can repeat steps of a predetermined number of times, which we call a for loop. And we can repeat steps until a condition is met, which we call a while loop. So we'll look at a for loop first. So this is the formatting or the syntax you need for a for loop. So for condition to do this, change the value for that condition. So, and then you end your for. So make more sense with an example. So here's our example here. So we're going to start. We're going to input some number. It can be any number. And our first iteration, I, we're just going to call that 1. Okay, so what we're doing is we're assigning a value to the number of iterations that we're doing. So as long as our I value is less than or equal to 10, what we're going to do is we're going to take our X naught value, whatever number we put in at the start. We're going to take 2, multiply by whatever that number was, and then subtract 3. And then we're going to move to the second iteration. So we're going to take I is going to become I plus 1. And then we're going to print that value. So we're going to print the value of X naught that we get each time. And so then we're going to go back. I will be 2 now. And X naught will be our new value. And then, so I is 2 now. X naught is a new value. So we're going to get 2 times our new value minus 3. And then we're going to move to the third iteration. I'm going to keep doing that and keep coming back to the start. X naught value will keep changing. And we're going to get I equals 3. And then you run the code. I equals 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then all the way up to and including the 10th iteration. And then you're going to end your for loop, or your loop will end after that. And then that's your code run. Okay, so that's how you do a for loop. That's when, as we said, you're repeating steps a predetermined number of times. So I've decided we're going to do it 10 times inclusive. We're going to include 10. So what's that? 1, 2, yeah, we're going to do it 10 times, including 10. Okay, if we want to repeat steps until a condition is met, we call that a while loop. So this is the syntax here. So while condition, do this until the condition is no longer true, and then end your while loop. So for example, start at some value, input whatever value you want. As long as that value is less than 100, we're going to multiply that value by 2. So 2 times x naught, which is the number we picked, minus 3. And then we're going to print that value. And we're going to keep doing that as long as the condition is met. And that condition is that x naught is less than 100. So it'll keep running through until it's less than 100, and then the while loop will end, and then your code is over. Your code's finally executed. So just to get a bit more of an idea of what's going on here, I've just put this into Python. So this code here that's here at the moment, you don't need to worry too much about. I've just put this basically into ChatGPT, and it's put it into Python coding language for me. But you'll see a few things that happen. So if I pick a starting value of, let's say, 4, and then I run the code, okay, you can see that our x naught started as 4. We doubled it, so it get us 8, and then we subtract 3, gives us 5. Okay. Okay, then so double 5 gives us 10, subtract 3 gives us 7. Double 7 gives us 14, subtract 3 gives us 11. Double 11 gives us 19. Double 11 gives us 22, subtract 3, 19. You get the idea. Double it, subtract 3 gives you the next term. Double it, subtract 3 gives you the next term. Okay, we can't, because it was a while loop, it's going to end once the value that's printed for x naught, once the next value that would be printed would be over 100. So you might be a bit confused there, because it can be a bit confusing. But basically, yeah, your x naught. So to get 131, let's think about it like this. We took 67. We took 67, which was our x naught. We doubled it, which, what's that, 134, and then subtracted 3, which got us 131. But now it stops because 131 is larger than 100, and that x naught value is larger than 100, so the while loop stops executing. Okay, another thing that I just wanted to point out, let's just run it if it's 3. I was pulling my hair out trying to work out why this didn't work, why the code didn't work before. But if I press run, you'll notice it'll just keep running the code. And the reason is it's not going to execute anything, is because if you think about it, what the code says to do is to take the x naught, which is 3, double it, then subtract 3. So it's going to go 2 to 6, subtract 3 gets you back to 3. And then you're going to use that x naught again of 3. So you're just going to end up in this loop that never ends. You're going to end up in this while loop that doesn't end, because it's always going to be stuck between 3 and 6. It's going to go 3 to 6, 3 to 6, 3 to 6. Okay, so you can see why that code doesn't execute. So that's just a bit of an introduction into some of the things that pseudocode talks about. You just need to be aware of some of the syntax, and in particular those for and while loops, and basically interpreting what is going to happen when you execute code. You won't at this stage be asked to write it, as far as I'm aware. You just need to be able to interpret it. So hopefully that was a helpful introduction.